petition by the honorable member. In as much as I do support the interrogation of any matters in the country that affects members of the public by this House, it's also important that this House should concentrate on the places where the problem lies. If there is a question as to the safety of Skyward Express or any other airline in this country, then the first place of call should be the Civil Aviation Act. This is the primary legislation that is the backbone of Kenya's aviation legal framework. It empowers the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority.
The name of businesses in the House to use the opportunities that we have on privileges we have in the House to also tarnish, because some of the things that has raised, as said by my colleague here,
Honorable
I will not go into the details of it.
Member for Garissa Township, you are still going into making negative comments about this petition.
Okay, Madam, I say...
And now I rule that you are out of order. If you want to make comments, you can make general comments, but do not discuss the petition at this moment.
Thank you. I will also ask the petition committee to look into it very seriously, the issues raised by the petitioner. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. I hope you'll also have time to attend. The Honorable Boss Member for Uasin Gishu.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to comment on the petition by the Honorable Member. In as much as I do support the interrogation of any matters in the country that affects members of the public by this House, it's also important that this House should concentrate on the places where the problem lies. If there is a question as to the safety of Skyward Express or any other airline in this country, then the first place of call should be the Civil Aviation Act. This is the primary legislation that is the backbone of Kenya's aviation legal framework. It empowers the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority to issue licenses and permits for aircraft operation in Kenya. It also deals with regulation and maintenance and inspection procedures and enforces compliance with those safety standards. So I think it would be myopic if the committee, when this matter comes before it, just focuses on one particular airline. Because the things that we can say of Skyward has been pointed out in the petition, we can say of Kenya Airways, we can say of many other airlines. So we should be asking ourselves, is our regulatory framework and licensing framework...
Please give her 2 more minutes. Please pass.
So in fact, I understand what the member for Garissa Township was trying to say. You are saying let's not pick out one particular aircraft, but let us go to the source of the problem, which is who is licensing, what is the aviation licensing policy, what are the rules on aviation, and we should, the buck should stop, is the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. They are the ones who should be the first people to be summoned.
Thank you very much, Member for Uasin Gishu. The Honorable Pauline Lengurus, Member for Samburu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance to stand up and support the motion. I support the petition, Madam Speaker, because we understand that the safety of Kenyans who use either road or air is important more than any other thing, whether business or anything that is done in this country. So I really stand up to support the petition because we put crucial importance to the safety of Kenyans, and especially the ones who use the air transport more frequently, as raised by the member from Turkana. Madam Speaker, I once traveled with the Skywards to Turkana, and I want to confirm here that I was also so scared because of the noise that was coming up from the plane and the smoke. So I was really terrified until we landed. So, and everyone should be concerned if you hear such kind of noise when you are on the air. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is something important that needed to be looked at by the Transport Ministry and the Committee on Transport, because if it didn't happen, let us not wait for something bad to happen to Kenyans in this country, especially those who use the airline more frequently. We are lucky that in Samburu we don't have any airline, and we are praying that we can get one so that we can easily travel as other members of this country. So, Madam Speaker, I support the petition, and it's important to look at all the airlines, the regulations, the standards, so that Kenyans are not put into problems when they choose to use any kind of transport that will help them reach their families. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support the petition.
From my left, the Honorable Charles Nguna, you had already made your comments, right? The Honorable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support the petition, Madam Speaker, but also to just say the way the Deputy Speaker has said, that remember this is also businesses of people. And I know Skyward has been opening up very many openings in terms of now they're in Mutembei, they're in Migori, and we need to also caution the standards. And it is important for us to look at also safety. And I know yesterday, Madam Speaker, we talked a lot about safety and regulations and looking at how we amend the Treaty of East Africa. But more importantly, now let us start with our own domestic laws and our own domestic regulations on how we deal with domestic flights that fly within our country, that we use quite often when we are flying in the western sides, in the eastern sides. But one thing that the committee should be looking at is to invite every person and every company, and they will be able to tell us more about safety. You remember one time, Madam Speaker, we had a 540 airline in this country, and you remember they were coming from Eldoret, if I'm not wrong, and that's how they ended up in the Aberdares. So I don't think even we ever followed up to really understand how the pilot ended there, and I know the weather was bad. So it's important now to look at it and then try and see how we can make it safe for every Kenyan. So I support Madam Speaker, and I hope the committee will do a good job in terms of just meeting all the airlines and understanding how our safety of those Kenyans who fly, and most importantly, how can we ensure we also give them good standards as Parliament, especially with regulations. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Emathe, member for Turkana Central.
Madam Speaker, I thank you. The matter at hand that we are discussing is very important and integral to our safety as Kenyans. Number two, Madam Speaker, the airline we are discussing needs to be one of an example to the rest of the airlines to help us understand if the aircrafts we are using are really in good condition. Because sometimes when you get into these aircrafts, the noise that comes from outside into the aircraft is a nuisance and actually frightens. Number two, sometimes you get not to understand how the aircraft just behaves in a bad situation in the air. Sometimes the buoyancy is too terrific and frightening. But all in all, we need to understand if the regulator can give us a record of the maintenance and even the longevity and the time that these aircrafts have been used since they were purchased. I understand some are even, they come into Kenya when they are already in use or used elsewhere. And Madam Speaker, this is just but a word we are sending out, the petitioner is sending out, that we need to be careful that anytime soon we could experience an accident, God forbid. And if it so happens, then it must come into record that today the petitioner has communicated that the airlines, the aircrafts must be careful in what they purchase and even on the manner in which they maintain the aircrafts. On the other side, Madam Speaker, the kind of monopoly that is happening across the charges that are being levied on the passengers is also on the higher side. And I will request that this also comes into the regulator to see how prices can be regulated so that the consumer or the users of these airlines are also cushioned. Madam Speaker, I support the petitioner and submit. Thank you.
Honorable members, before we proceed, allow me to recognize the presence of Braeburn Kisumu International School from Kisumu Central Constituency, Kisumu County. They are seated in the public gallery. On my own behalf and that of the entire House, I wish to welcome the students of Braeburn International School, Kisumu, to the National Assembly. Thank you. My son's sister school. Honorable Member for Lamu East.
Asante Bispika. Nami nichangie katika ombi hili. Bispika, usalama wa ndege na abiria wake ni muhimu. Hakuna mtu anataka kukose usalama. Ndege ni ghali na maisha ya binadamu ni ghali. Kwa hivyo kila mtu anaitumia, na hata wale ambao hawatumii wanataka usalama wa ndege uangaliwe na abiria wake. Bispika, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority wanatoa certificate inaitwa Certificate of Airworthiness, na certificate hiyo kila baada muda wanafaa kutoa tena. Kwa hivyo kama kuna matatizo ya ndege, inamaanisha tatizo liko kwa Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, si kwa mwenye ndege, kwa sababu wao wana inspectors, lazima waende waka-inspect, wao ndio wanatoa license, na wanaenda na hiyo ndege juu ya anga kabla wapeane hiyo license. Bispika, nilikuwa nataka niutoe ushauri. Ushauri wangu, tuweke wataalamu katika hiyo petition committee ambao watasaidia hiyo petition, kwa sababu kuna vitu vingine kama ukitoka moshi, kama kuna combustion lazima itoke moshi. Haiwezi kuwa na combustion ikiwa hakuna moshi. Pia kuna tofauti ya turbine engine, turboprop na zingine. So unaweza kuwa umezoea zile ndege za kama Kenya Airways, hizi za hizi tunazotumia sana za Kenya Airways, ikawa zile hazitoi moshi, unategemea ukienda na ile turboprop isitoe moshi. Hapo paka iangaliwe vizuri. Bispika, hii issue ya kusema ghali au mwanzo twende kwa huu usalama, kitu kama inaweza kutokea incident, na incident zinatokea, zile ni machine. Kama ni kwa sababu ya incident moja ya sauti labda imetokea, mimi ningeomba, ushauri wangu, kamati iangalie ndege zote za Kenya, hususan General Aviation, kwa sababu hata Kenya Airways ishawahi tokea ikienda Mombasa, hapa wabunge wakiwa ndani ya hiyo ndege ikakuwa na shida. Mbona hatusemi Kenya Airways ilikuwa na shida? Hii inakaa kama kutarget one airline. So tufanye generally ndege zote ziangaliwe, usalama wa ndege zetu za Kenya uangaliwe vizuri. Bispika, kwa mtu akisema bei bei ile hujalazimishwa kupanda. Na ukisema bei inaonesha tofauti ya usalama sasa huko na bei. Sasa shida ni bei au shida ni usalama? Maana mtu akiweka bei hapo inaleta shida. Yeah, I can declare my interest. I'm from aviation industry. Yeah.
What's your point of order, Honorable Chepkonga?
Yes. Nitasema ndege inatoa moshi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know, your sister speakers had already made a ruling on this matter, that it is general comments. But listening from the honorable member who is contributing, he is defending the airline. Notwithstanding the fact that she has declared her interest, that she has some information about airlines. If she has any information, let her go to the committee. But the petition was approved by the Speaker. It is well suited for this House. The chair of the petition was here. We hope that she is going to do justice. And if she wishes to comment about the airline. And you know, the Honorable Speaker, you know, you spoke very well here. In fact, you pointed out that the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, which is charged with the responsibility of ensuring airworthiness of planes, that should have been the first port of call. But since it is in the House can call KCAA so that it can look at all these issues. But it will be unfair to contribute in a manner that you are opposing the petition.
Okay, Honorable Chepkonga, you've made it clear, but this is not similar to the case of the earlier ruling by the Speaker who was on the seat. I think the Honorable Member, Honorable Captain Zuweda, is simply carrying on the conversation that the inspection is normally done by the Kenya Civil Authority. I think that was her trajectory. And I think she's on that trajectory. And I'll allow you to complete, Honorable Zuweda.
Asante, Bi Speaker. Ningeomba basi hii bunge itilie mkazo upande wa air safety. Na iwe generally lakini isilenge kampuni moja, kwa kampuni zote, kwa sababu sisi tunatumia hizi kampuni zote na it will not be fair kuangalia tu kampuni moja. Asante.
Okay, thank you, honorable members, for contribution on that. Now we can proceed to the next order. I only allowed Captain Rueda since she's from the industry.
Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion.
That notice of motion is again by Honorable Captain Rueda, member for Lamu East. You may proceed with your notice of motion.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That aware that Article 329 provide the national security organ, including the Kenya Defence Force, further aware that the Kenya Defence and Kenya Special Forces play an indispensable role in promoting and safeguarding nation security in accordance with the Constitution. Recognizing that members of the forces face life-threatening risk as they carry out their duty to protect our citizens, particularly in high-risk and volatile areas. Noting that there is currently no token of appreciation for the remarkable dedication, service, and sacrifice made by the Kenya Defence and Special Forces, acknowledging that it is important to accord a special privileges and honor to our military and veteran personnel, akin to the practice observed in other countries, including being allowed to access services like banking hall and boarding of flight ahead of general public. Further acknowledging that this practice will not only instill a sense of pride among the Kenya Defence and Kenya Special Forces personnel, but also enhance their morale and motivation, hereby boosting their performance and commitment to our national security. Cognizant of the fact that there exists no national policy or framework to facilitate the implementation of such a practice, now therefore this House urges that the national government, through the Ministry of Roads and Transport, encourages local airlines to establish a priority boarding protocol of Kenya Defense and Kenya Special Forces personnel, which grant them the privilege to board local aircraft before the General Republic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Expansion of drug and substance abuse rehabilitation centers. Question to be put.
We move to the next order.
Order number 9, motion. Regulation of the sugar industry to discourage branding of sugar by non-millers. Question to be put.
Next order. We defer the putting of the question. Next order.
Order number 10, the Gold Processing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide further establishment, composition, functions, and management of the Gold Processing Corporation. Provide for the application, cancellation, and renewal of gold processing licenses and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 11, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment. National Assembly Bill number 50 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission Act and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 12, motion, action to address the recent surge in road accidents in the country.
Honorable members, I wish to propose the question that aware that the National Transport Safety Authority Act of 2012 provides for the establishment of the National Transport Safety Authority, further aware that the authority, in line with Section 4 of the Act, plays a critical role in ensuring the provision of safe, reliable, efficient road transport services, and concerned that there has been an alarming surge in the road accidents in the recent past, resulting in loss of life, injuries, and damage to properties, further concerned that the authority has not effectively and fully performed its functions of regulating safe and reliable transport service, especially in dealing with public service vehicles, noting that poor maintenance of the motor vehicles and is deeply concerned that school-going children are increasingly becoming victims of these road accidents, and recognizing that it is the responsibility of the authority to ensure adherence to the road traffic rules and to establish systems and procedures for and oversee the training, testing, and licensing of drivers. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the government, through the Ministry of Roads and Transport, undertakes a comprehensive overhaul of the transportation sector to provide for the proper regulation of the sector and ensure strict operationalization of the traffic regulations to provide a safer and more reliable transport sector. Will as many as of that, no, not yet, you may proceed. Okay, those who want to contribute to this particular debate, kindly press the intervention button, but I will start with the Honorable Joseph Majimbo, member Kalasinga, member of Kapuchai.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a motion of concern, and it is coming at the right time. This is the time, Madam Speaker, when Christmas is approaching, and again, coupled with El Nino. So many vehicles on the road, with a very slippery road all over the country, Madam Speaker. So a lot of concern has to be raised, and the motion should address this with a lot of keenness. Madam Speaker, looking at the fact of how some roads in our country are in this state, we want also to know how are roads going to be maintained. As I speak today, Madam Speaker, we are going to bury a young man tomorrow who was swept by water on a road across a bridge. Madam Speaker, the concern of this motion is well settled at this time. We are not forgetting also the controllers of the traffic on the road. Madam Speaker, sometimes we don't understand why some police officers go to the road. They go to the road, Madam Speaker, to collect money. Sometimes, Madam Speaker, the traffic officers don't even check the speed. They don't. They only go to the road, Madam Speaker, to ask the drivers. I'm also concerned, Madam Speaker, that some laws must be made strictly, in that even the vehicles must be checked when were they maintained last service, the vehicles. Some vehicles have surpassed service. They have never even changed oils for some vehicles. Brakes, Madam Speaker, very key to this vehicle, to these roads. So, and also, Madam Speaker, the vehicles are going to increase as we approach this December. We must be concerned about this. We have also to look at how PSV, public service vehicles, Madam Speaker, matatus, how they transport our people. Some of these drivers, when we have a lot of passengers, Madam Speaker, they tend to go more than 5 trips with one single driver. From Nairobi to Bungoma and back, same day, and then back to Bungoma, Nairobi and back. And the driver is asleep. They don't have adequate time. So laws must be very strict, Madam Speaker, on how many times one driver must go on a trip. And the adequate time to sleep and rest and sanitize. And run well this, Madam Speaker. If we don't make laws right, Madam Speaker, we're going to blame ourselves for this. We have issues, Madam Speaker, on how we even look at maintenance of these roads. Is the bodies required, like Kera, like Kura, ready with enough budget to look at this El Nino and how we must run it up. Madam Speaker, this Parliament and the Member of Parliament, the member who brought this motion, Madam Speaker, brought it at the right time. So as people of Kenya, as legislators, as people who take care of the people who are on the ground, Madam Speaker, we must ensure that this motion sails and brings sense to the roads so that we save the lives of our people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Patrick Munene. Okay, the Honorable Dorothy Kiara, nominated member from Meru.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to add my voice to this motion, action to address the recent surge in road accidents in the country. Madam Speaker, before I say anything, I want to share in the pain of the many families who are crying because of losing their loved ones through the rampant road accidents that are there day in, day out. Madam Speaker, according to the National Transport Safety Authority, It is evident that between January and March of this year, we have already lost 974 lives, of which majority are riders, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, it's important to note that this surge in road accidents is not something that just happened in a day. It is something that has progressively happened, and the departments concerned seem like they don't take charge of these accounts, and this is the reason why they keep on recurring. Madam Speaker, it is important that the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure take a data-driven decision which they can use to benchmark on our country's road and know the safety measures that they have to take. Madam Speaker, I'm saying this because the rampant places where road accidents occur, they are well known in this country. I'm speaking in reference, Madam Speaker, to a road in Meru, which is the Rakanithi Bridge, where we have lost massive of lives, Madam Speaker. And every time when there is an accident at the Rakanithi Bridge, we see the entire Ministry of Transport moving to the Rakanithi Bridge. And they spend days there looking at the possible measures that they can put in place to arrest the situation there. And immediately they spend massive days there doing research and giving recommendations on what to do to avert future accidents in the same area. They go back to Nairobi and throw the file there and wait for another accident so that they can come again. Madam Speaker, I want to state clearly that if the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure is serious, we can see action, deliberate action being taken in the roads that are very rampant in road accident. Number two, Madam Speaker, we have another road in Meru, that is the Soboiga area, where there are accidents every day. After every 2 days, we lose lives. This is an area which is known as a black spot. The Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure will always come there when there is a serious accident. When we lost the Loreto girls in an accident, the entire Nairobi office came and camped there. They gave recommendations on what should be done on that road. Madam Speaker, I'm sorry to say they are waiting for another accident to occur so that they can take the office from Nairobi, come to Meru and camp there, give recommendations and go back to Nairobi. Madam Speaker, I'm saying this now in the backyard of the motorcycle riders. Madam Speaker, it is very painful that today we have the motorcycle riders who are being killed day in, day out, Madam Speaker. They are on our roads, and unless the Ministry of Transport does something, Madam Speaker, we are going to lose very many young lives who are in their productive age. We want to appreciate that the riders, the motorcycles have become an economic activity for our young people, but Madam Speaker, unless something is done in our roads, we are going to lose young people between the ages of 17 and 35 who are in their productive age, Madam Speaker, because of the road accident. Madam Speaker, I want to propose the Ministry of Transport should elect shoulders where these riders can be riding. So,
just give her a minute, please.
Speaker, I'm proposing that we should come up with a very clear policy from the Ministry of Transport that they erect shoulders, just like we have footpaths, so that the riders can be riding on those shoulders in all the newly constructed roads. Madam Speaker, if we don't do this, we are sitting on a time bomb in our roads, and we will lose the productive people in the ages of 18 to 35. Madam Speaker, Thank you very much, and I want to thank Madam Naomi Wako for bringing this very, very important motion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Catherine Omayo, member for Busia County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm supporting this motion fully. We have lost so many lives. Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's a hitch. Yeah, road accidents happen because human behavior in Kenya. Most people who drive ignore the recommended speed that is there. I remember we used to have Honorable Michuki, who had brought in speed limits commands, and it reduced actually accidents in Kenya. But mostly, most drivers or people who own cars, because of the arrogance and pride, thinking that having a vehicle, they are above pedestrians, they even ignore to give priority to pedestrians when driving. So it is like the law is changed, because usually you give pedestrians priority. Because you have a car, you can reach where you want to reach on time, but the pedestrian has to really work double to be wherever they are going on time. Many people, because of the vices, they drink, they drive under influence, and because they can corrupt their way in the corridors of the courts, they cause accidents and bribe their way out and still repeat the same mistake. We have very many careless drivers who were taught in a compound how to drive. They know where the brake is, they know where the accelerator is, and go and buy a driving license, and they're out there driving, risking everybody's lives, including theirs. We also have minimal accidents on asphalt roads or gravel roads or dirt roads, because everybody, whether drunk or sober, they know this is not a proper road. Meaning we choose sometimes to cause accidents. If we can be more keen on asphalt roads than on tarmac roads, it means we choose sometimes to cause accidents. So, Madam Speaker, this particular season, we are facing Christmas and many other holidays towards the end of the year. And this is the time we record so many accidents. I think the people who are at the NTSA, if they reduced also being corrupt, the traffic police all over the roads, stopping vehicles and just receiving money and allowing reckless vehicles on the road, if we became so strict that anybody who is caught in an offense or in conflict with the law of traffic should face it, then we will reduce more accidents. We have border borders, we have bicycles, pedestrians, so many, especially in smaller towns, that are just killed like chicken, and it just goes like that. It is a high time we stood firm, and also even if it's somebody in the places of authority, like a member of parliament or a governor who has caused an accident, they should make sure that they take up the matter themselves, they go through the process, the pain, to make sure that the insurance companies also pay these people earlier. We have so many people living with disability because they got an accident and the insurance company took even 10 years to respond. That also makes it more difficult, and it causes a lot of mental health. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for this, and I support Honorable Naomi Wako for thinking right and bringing this kind of motion at the right time.
The Honorable Member, Honorable Patrick Munene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to support this important debate in this House today. And Madam Speaker, coming from the Rakanidi.
One moment, Honorable Rachel Manyamai, kindly put off your mic.
Coming from the Rakanidi, Madam Speaker, when the issue of accident is mentioned in this country, it's a very emotional issue in the Rakanidi. Because, Madam Speaker, for the last so many years, we've lost thousands of Kenyans at Nidi Bridge. I'm sure almost every year we lose around almost 200 to 300 people at Nidi Bridge. We are always sure that when there's an accident at Nidi Bridge, we will receive a senior government official, either from the police, either from the ministry. And anytime they come, they give so many promises on what they think should be done and what they think they will do. And the bridge has always remained like that. Last year, towards election, we had an accident there, where in one accident, we lost over 40 people in one accident. All government officials came, so many promises were given, but Madam Speaker, I can tell you, up to today, nothing has happened at that place. At Nidi Bridge, almost every week, you must lose 2 to 10 people every week at Nidi Bridge. And it's a known story in this country, and it has remained like that. Madam Speaker, I've always wondered how much would it cost to have speed cameras on our roads? How much would it cost, Madam Speaker, to have a speed camera at Nidi? Because every time we have an accident at Nidi, the traffic police come, and when they take that vehicle to court, they say 40 brakes, worn out wheels, driver drunk, and that vehicle or bus or any vehicle came all the way from Nairobi through so many load blocks, and finally when it causes an accident, the report is very clear that the brakes were 40, the wheels were worn out. So you had all those load blocks the vehicle came through. They did not notice worn out wheels. They did not notice a drunk driver. So, Madam Speaker, I think we're losing so many Kenyans carelessly on our loans. Recently, I was in Mombasa, and I was having a discussion with some tourists, and they were telling me people from their country, I won't mention the country, are now starting getting scared of coming to Kenya because they are really losing their people on our loans. So it's a bigger picture. We're even losing tourism because of our careless and reckless driving on our roads. Madam Speaker, I think the issue of accident in this country is a matter that the government needs to take seriously. I don't think it will take too much to regulate our driving, because, Madam Speaker, when drivers, I come from a place where I use the Thika Road. When people hear there is a speed camera or there is a speed police along the way, you can see how well they behave. So I think it has come a time, Madam Speaker, now that the country needs to invest heavily on road safety. We also need to control and regulate our driving schools, because, Madam Speaker, we have funny driving schools in this country. In this country, we know it's easy to get a driving license even without going to any driving school. People are getting driving licenses. Within a day in Kenya, you get your driving license. You have never been to any driving school. So, Madam Speaker, I think life is sacred. We've lost so many people. It has come to a time now that as a country we need to take the issue of accident seriously. Madam Speaker, I support and I ask that the Nidi Bridge be an urgent issue for this government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Karachuonyo, Honourable Andrew Okuome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. When we talk of road safety, and in particular road accidents, we have to realize that we are talking of human beings' life. People lose their lives on the roads. People die. They leave orphans, they leave widows, they leave us with the dead. And therefore, Madam Speaker, what I'm saying is that this particular motion is extremely important because it touches on human life. I'm saying this because I'm aware there are I would say two people involved. One is the human being driving the vehicle, and the other one is not a human being, but the vehicle itself. If the vehicle is in good condition and the person driving it, we would probably minimize or eliminate these bad death accidents. I'm aware, Madam Speaker, of the saying that accidents is caused, not that they happen. Somebody causes accident. Either the bad vehicle causes the accident, or the bad driver causes the accident. But these are things which can be prevented. If a vehicle is in good condition, to a large extent we are safe. Why is the vehicle not in good condition? Certainly police are on the road, they see the vehicles. They pass them for good condition when they are bad, and the vehicle goes, probably preparing the vehicle to kill along the way. This is something that should be looked at very keenly, so that the vehicle itself is properly taken care of and maintained. This is something that can be done. Turning to the driver himself, is this driver roadworthy? Is he really the kind of person that should be driving a vehicle with people inside it? Perhaps he's drunk. And then along the way, he passes all the road checking system that is on the road. Now, if this driver is taken care of on the way and probably arrested, the accident will be avoided. So what I'm trying to say is that the NTSA should do their work. They should carry out the proper exercise they are supposed to carry out so that we can avoid these deaths. Otherwise, if we do not take action, we will be constantly mourning our dead on matters which can be avoided. Madam Speaker, this is a very important issue, and I support Madam Waku Mheshimiwa for bringing this motion because it is a very important one. I do support the motion, Madam.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Embu County, Honorable Njoki, also known as Double N.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I wish to take this opportunity to support the motion brought by Honorable Naomi Wako regarding the issue of accidents on our roads. And we know, the Honorable Speaker, that accidents don't just happen, they are caused. And when we go down in our history, we can locate some of the main causes of accidents on our roads. One of them being a lot of speeding, that initially we had the issue of having regulations on what is the speed limit of our public vehicles. We know that also, Madam Speaker, we have issues related to drugs. And when I talk about drugs, we know that alcohol is one of the most abused drugs. And some of our drivers drive the vehicles under the influence of alcohol. We also know that sometimes we are tempted as drivers to use our mobile phones while we are driving. So sometimes we lose focus on the roads while we are driving. Madam Speaker, it is the high time that the NTSA or the authority now comes to the rescue of this country so that we don't experience loss of lives on our roads. We know the school-going children, we know our mothers and our fathers that are using our roads every day are some of the victims on our roads through the road accidents. And therefore, Madam Speaker, it is the high time that the regulations, especially the NTSA through the Ministry of Transport and Road, ensure that all public vehicles are in good condition, how often they go for their service, whether they are roadworthy, because if they are not regularly checked, it means we shall continue having road accidents on our roads. Madam Speaker, allow me to also indicate that we are approaching our Christmas festive season, and that is when all the vehicles, including the private and the public vehicles, are on our roads. And that is when we realize a lot of accidents happening on our roads. NTSA, through the Ministry of Transport and Roads, should ensure that all the vehicles that are on the roads have been tested. They have been looked into in terms of maintenance, because some of them lack maintenance for quite a long time. We don't know when the last service was done to our vehicles. And when I talk about our vehicles, I also talk about borders, because they also need to know that the borders should also have been checked and should have should have been serviced well before they are on the road. And also our roads, how roadworthy are our roads? How is our infrastructure on our roads? When the drivers are on our roads, are the roads well maintained? And this is the question, Madam Speaker, that we need to ask ourselves, so that even as we blame probably the drivers, we also need to look into the roads. How well have they been maintained because of our public transport? And therefore, Madam Speaker, as I support this motion of Naomi Wako, I want also to state that during this period of Christmas, let all the policemen be alert on the road. They check the speed limit of the vehicles, and especially in Embu County, Madam Speaker, and in Meru, where we have Mogoka and Mira. Those vehicles move in very high speeds, and they are never ever stopped by the traffic policemen. And we don't know whether they are above the law or whether they have special arrangements with the policemen on the roads. And they have caused numerous accidents on our roads, both in Meru and in Embu. Madam Speaker, this motion has come the right time when the Ministry of Transport and Roads should take charge. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Tarbo Constituency, Honourable Janet Sitiene.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
No, let me just allow to let Honourable Jane Kihara. She is in dispense, and so she's able to seek permission in advance whether she can come to the house.
Thank you.
You may proceed, Honourable Member for Tarbo.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to add my voice to this motion and thank Honourable Wako for bringing it in. I really want to support this motion because we have had very many accidents on our roads, and I want to ask that NTSA may really up their game, especially on road vehicle inspections, especially on the Kenya should also check on the roads. Sometimes there are black spots that they need to put some pumps, so they need to check on that. I also want to, Madam Speaker, to ask that NTSA should be particularly concerned about the motorcycles, because most of the accidents, especially about 80% of the accidents that occur on our roads are caused by the motorbike riders. And we really want to request that the NTSA should really take charge and ensure that vehicles are inspected, motorcycles are inspected, and that the drivers or the riders are actually compliant with the licenses, or are licensed and are supposed to ride when they have actually been given licenses. Most of the motorcycle drivers have not been trained, so they just learn on their own and get onto the roads. And that is why we find that many of the accidents that occur are caused by the motorbike riders. And therefore, it is important and imperative that the NTSA officers should be able to inspect every moment. And then, Madam Speaker, the other thing that contributes to this is lack of seriousness with our police officers on the roads. That is what contributes to the road accidents. You will find a vehicle that is really not in good state to be on the road, actually going through the traffic police stations, the traffic police officers, and they are let go. Nobody takes care of it because of the corruption issue. So we really also want to ask that those police officers be able to stop that kind of habit, so that our roads are safe, so that the riders are safe, and everybody else is safe. I also want to add my voice that as we approach the festivity, we would want that the police officers NTSA team have put people on particular spots on the roads to be able to check compliance of the riders and compliance of our vehicles, so that we can reduce the number of accidents that are taking away lives of the citizens of Kenya, so that we can have safety on our roads, because it's paramount. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me that opportunity to add my voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, we are approaching the end of the time for this particular debate, but I think I'll give the opportunity to Honorable Jane Kihara. And Honorable Jane Kihara, yes, you've been here. Your card has been there, except I'd requested that you press the intervention button so that I can know you're particularly seeking for this year. You may proceed, Honorable Kihara.
Madam Speaker, my intervention.
Honorable members, I think there's something that the clerk told me. We are having a challenge with the system.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Yes, I've been sitting here and also my intervention button has been on. So something must have been wrong. Madam Speaker, this is an important motion that we should all take great advantage in discussing and supporting. Madam Speaker, there are so many things that cause accidents in this country. We as citizens and drivers must all do our part, because blame game will not help us solve the problem of accidents on our roads. There are so many things, road conditions. Madam Speaker, the shoulders of some of our highways are completely worn out, and also we have a problem of drunk driving, and especially by the youth of this country. You see them go out partying and drinking, and they drink themselves to extremes, and they don't have a designated driver. They hop into the car, and of course, these days, with the police being able to be bribed and they move on, they cause serious accidents. We are losing young ones because of drunk driving. We also need our drivers and ourselves to get medical checkup. Sometimes our drivers do not even know that they have a problem with their eyesight, because most of the accidents are by human error. Like it said, accidents are caused, they don't just happen. Madam Speaker, the road signage, there are very few drivers who know their chart of the road signage. Also, the driving schools, I don't know what is taught these days in schools, in driving schools, because you'll see a driver where there is a climbing lane using the wrong side and flashing you. You're on the right side, flashing you like because he's overtaking on the wrong side. So our drivers also, these automated cars, we also have a problem with that. I think we need to go back to the cars with gears, where you engage your mind, because they just step on the pedal and move at a very high speed. Madam Speaker, we should all play our part. The police are reluctant. We have become very casual in the way we operate on the roads. Deaths have occurred, people have been crippled, and we keep on talking about NTSA, the ministry. Well, we as drivers are not doing our part. Madam Speaker, cars, the impatience of our drivers, like this festive season, you will see cars forming eight lanes when they are going, because I don't know where our Kenyans are running to. They become so impatient. They block all the roads so that nobody is moving. And you have seen it. You have seen yourself being in one spot for 1 hour because of the impatience of drivers. Drivers just run. Nobody gives others the way. We have traveled a lot in this world, and we have seen some countries able to control the motorbikes so that they move in such a systematic manner that you don't see this crafted driving or riding where they cross from
all over. Sometimes these motorbike drivers are just hit because of their carelessness. Madam Speaker, the most important thing is for the Ministry of Transport and Roads to be able to control the motorbikes. Give them a lane, or when they are driving, they must know that they are also responsible as the drivers of the cars, so that all of us take their role. We cannot keep on blaming each and everyone while we, as a nation, the drivers, do not take our responsible role. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Honorable Madam Wako, I want to reply and thank all the members that have contributed for this motion, and that all the issues that have been raised, from bad roads to bad drivers to bad cars to unconducive environment to driving licenses being issued to people who do not qualify, to the very many issues that have been raised in this House. I think I want to sincerely, on behalf of the Deputy Whip, thank you, members, very, very much for your contributions. And that, Honorable Speaker, when a motion is brought here, Parliament does not work in vain, and we hope that all the recommendations that have been made here will be taken into consideration by the relevant authorities, and that those authorities will eventually ensure that the people of Kenya, accidents in the roads of Kenya reduce. It is imperative that the Honorable Wako mentioned in her presentation that actually we have lost many more people on the roads than what we lost during COVID. This is not good for the economy of this country. This is not even very good for the reputation of our country, of a growing economy like Kenya, where we have investors. You know, when investors are looking for investor confidence, these days they even put the matrix of road accidents, how many people die on the roads. And therefore, it is very important that we keep our roads safe. But more importantly, I would also ask our members of Parliament, as you go into your constituencies, it's very important to educate the border riders. We are actually losing very many able young people on the road because of border and the many accidents. We saw the other day the PS Susan. She had a bad accident that was occasioned by a border that the border died, and the border rider died, and Susan ended up in hospital. In Kilifi recently, we had a whole family of 4 people dying because all the 4 were carried by one border, and that one border was hit by a vehicle. So a whole family was wiped out because of only one accident involving a border rider. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have a danger in our hands. We have something that is consuming medical care. We have referral hospitals in this country that have specific wards for accident victims, actually border accident victims. We need to put an end to this. And finally, Honorable Speaker, as we approach the festive season, as schools close and we approach Christmas, New Year, and the festive season ahead of us, we need to be careful on the roads to ensure that we preserve life, we keep life safe, so that this country can continue to move forward. Honorable Speaker, with these many remarks, on behalf of the Honorable Wako, I want to thank every member again and appreciate, and therefore I reply. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next order. I think we shall defer the putting of the question to a later date. For now, we can move to the next order.
Order number 13. The Kenya Drugs Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2022. Resumption of debate.
Honorable Robert Bukosa, member for Endebess, I think you were in the middle of moving. You were interrupted. You probably have 15 or so minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the Kenya Drugs Authority Bill, Bill number 54 of 2022, be read a second time and continue with the debate, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that seeks to consolidate the regulation of health products and technologies in keeping with international best practices and guidance from the World Health Organization. This bill will promote and guarantee the quality, safety, and efficacy and effectiveness of health products and technologies in the country.
Honorable Pukose, let me just interrupt you for a minute to give out some instructions. Could those who have their cards on the intervention button kindly pull them out and then relog again if you want to contribute to this particular Kenya Drugs Authority bill, so that I can write them down on paper before they disappear from the system. Thank you. You may proceed, Honorable Pukose.
Madam Speaker, this bill establishes the Kenya Drugs Authority that is responsible for the regulation, investigation, inspection, and approval of health products and technologies and related matters. Madam Speaker, the committee, having gone through this bill, made the following observations: that the bill expands the functions of the current Pharmacy and Poisons Board and re-engineers the new regulator based on international best practice in regulation of human health products and technologies, including therapeutic cosmetics. This re-engineering will enable the country attain the recommended World Health Organization maturity level 3. Level 3, Madam Speaker, this is where a national regulatory authority can be trusted and be able to control the manufacture of products to a world-class standards. Madam Speaker, the bill strengthens the functions of the National Quality Control Laboratory, which will improve the quality of test analysis and research for quality control. This in turn ensures that the health products and technologies used in the country meets international quality standards, thereby guaranteeing patient safety. The bill therefore fulfills the country's obligation in the war against poor quality medicines in line with its commitment under the recently ratified African Union establishment of the African Medical Medicines Agency Treaty, which this House ratified, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill strengthens the regulation of medicines by providing a comprehensive regulatory framework which enables the country to comply with good manufacturing practices as efficient under the African Union medical law on regulation of medical products. This ensures that health products and technologies used in the country are safe and effective in line with Section 66 of the Health Act number 21 of 2017. Madam Speaker, this bill also encourages local manufacturing of health products and technologies as exposed in the Kenya Universal Health Coverage Policy 2020 to 2030. The bill is therefore in line with the government's plan of promoting local manufacturing, especially in the pharmaceutical sector, a key contributor of Kenya's economy. The bill will hasten the attainment of the government's vision for national economic transformation. And lastly, Madam Speaker, this bill further improves the availability of health products and technologies and enhances access to priority health products and technologies. The bill also improves the efficiency of operations, quality, and pricing of medicines and vaccines, which are key components and enablers for the successful realization of universal health coverage. Madam Speaker, the committee, having considered this bill, has approved this bill with amendments, and those amendments we shall move them during the committee of the whole House. So I want to urge that those people who are in the public, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, the Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya, Pharmaceutical Association, the pharmaceutical manufacturers, that they hold their horses, and those amendments which had been proposed will be put into consideration by the committee during the committee of the whole House. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to move. Can I ask Nyikal or you to second? I want to move and ask the Vice Chair, Honorable Patrick Mbiga Munene, member for Ikamba-Ng'ombe, to second. I know Dr. Nyikal is also here to contribute, and he will also be making contributions to this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seconder, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand to second my chair on this bill. And Madam Speaker, as the country moves towards universal health coverage, as envisioned in the vision of the Kenya Kwanza government, we need to note that one of the key pillars of the health sector is health product and technologies, Madam Speaker. And a country that is unable to control and regulate the health product and technologies, Madam Speaker, may not or may miss the mark in achieving the health of its people. Madam Speaker, the pharmaceutical industry in this country for a long time have not been very well regulated, Madam Speaker. That's why at times you find we have had a drug in the shelves for almost a year, like I witnessed last month where we had a cough syrup for babies, and then all of a sudden it withdrawn and we are told that it was not effective. So you had how did this drug get in the shelf and it has been used for almost a year. Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to put stringent measures in regulation of drugs in this country and technologies. Madam Speaker, Kenya is a growing economy, and Madam Speaker, as a country we wish to enter into the global market in manufacturing of medicines and drugs and technologies, Madam Speaker. And currently being at maturity level 1, Madam Speaker, Kenya is not able to export the drugs we manufacture from our local manufacturers to other countries, Madam Speaker. So this bill and what is envisioned in this bill, Madam Speaker, is to push the country towards a maturity level 3, Madam Speaker, where our manufacturers can export our drugs locally manufactured to other countries in the region, Madam Speaker. This will spur economic growth, will provide job opportunities to our people, Madam Speaker, and it will be a great achievement for this government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, by strengthening the National Quality Control Laboratory, Madam Speaker, it will make sure that the drugs and medicines and technologies that get into our shelves are safe for our people, Madam Speaker, because, Madam Speaker, it's a function of government to ensure safety of its citizens. Madam Speaker, this bill also seeks to make sure that we regulate the professionals allowed the business of drug, that our technologists, that our pharmacists, Madam Speaker, because until we regulate that whole field of professionals, Madam Speaker, as a country we might not move very well in the health sector. Madam Speaker, as we discuss achieving primary health care, I want to reiterate that primary health care, the center of it all is medicine, is technologies. And Madam Speaker, when we have a free market, where anybody gets what they want in the market, where you walk into any shop, you get medicine that should be given by a professional from a shopkeeper, Madam Speaker. It's a very tricky and dangerous place for us to be as citizens of this country, because locally you walk into a shop and every shopkeeper in our villages has become a doctor. He will prescribe for you, he'll tell you how this works and how this is stronger than this one. Madam Speaker, this bill seeks to control that space so that we can have control in the sale and dispensation of drugs across the country. Madam Speaker, I stand here to second this bill, Madam Speaker, and say that it's a very important piece of legislation, not only for this country also, but for this administration, Madam Speaker, having healthcare at the center of the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza government. Madam Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that the Kenya Drugs Authority Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 54 of 2022 be read a second time. Okay, those who want to contribute, please press the intervention. I only have one person on intervention. I have Honorable Beatrice Elachi, then I have Honorable Eric Mushangi, Honorable James Nyikal. Yes, so on intervention, I'm just writing down your names. Honorable Atandi. Okay, you may start, Honorable Beatrice Elachi. I'm just reading the name so that in case it disappears from the screen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support this bill. knowing very well, Madam Speaker, where we are as a country in terms of safety of drugs. And Madam Speaker, when you look at our poison board today, you realize that there are many, many issues that we need to ask ourselves. First of all, to just ask ourselves, even as we talk about that drug safety, is that how are we able to regulate the chemists, the pharmacists that we have across the country? That today there are so many, you find one with just a few drugs, you wonder whether indeed it makes, even in terms of their profits or in terms of anything. But then you enter in and you realize there is a set of medications that they just keep on their shelves. And some of them have now become more even serious, where young people will just point out and know, if I walk into this, I'll be able to find a drug that will ease me from my addiction of drugs. And so we have to ask ourselves, as we agree with the authority, as we strengthen the authority, that we are able to ensure that in Kenya, we have to go back, Madam Speaker, and look at even the pharmaceuticals we've given licenses that are doing drugs in this country. You find we have very many generic drugs that people are now taking. And you find it is becoming also very difficult. When you are sick, you find yourself getting resistance to some of the drugs that we have today. Madam Speaker, I would wish, even as we move with this Kenya Drugs Authority, that we ask ourselves, this disease that has just come, that keeps you every time on a kit of H. pylori. At every time when you go to a doctor, Madam Speaker, you are told you are sick H. pylori. You are put on a kit for 14 days and you wonder. Then after 14 days, you think you are done. In 2 months again, the doctor tells you you should go back on the same kit. And slowly by slowly, we are just entrenching something poison in our bodies. And so even if we bring in this authority, even if we want to ensure we enhance the capacity of those who deal with drugs in our country, there is time we now look at our brothers who are Asians, who have these pharmaceuticals, who are here in industrial area doing some very interesting business, but killing us slowly by slowly. And you walk into a hospital, you are unable to even say anything because you are wondering. And even how someone comes and says, this kit, can we have also in the bill, I am hoping we shall have a way that when you transit, and I know Dr. Nyikal is here, will help us, that if you feel this drug is now outdated, that there is a new version. Isn't it important to do public participation, to Kenyans to know? Because you just come and you release and you say, Calpol is not working, then you remove. Brufen, the same. But then when you go to Europe, you find that there's very serious public participation when you're introducing in a new drug and when you're removing a drug from the shelf. So that if it becomes an issue, then that citizen has a right to sue and to be paid. And we have seen that happening in Europe. But here in Kenya, we have become like a dumping ground. If you ask me, I went to Ghana a few days ago, and you will find, if there is a place they have ensured, safeguarded, is their issue of medication, of drugs. But here, we have allowed everybody, anyone can do a business of a chemist. And so you even wonder, we don't have a few regulations. And who monitors? Now that health was devolved, who remained up there to ensure quality assurance in everything that we do within the set of health? So there is need of very serious policy, Madam Speaker. Even as we bring in the authority, there must be a way of regulating. There must be a way of now each pharmaceutical to also do public participation, as the Constitution says, that we shall have public participation for Kenyans to understand. So, Madam Speaker, we are agreeing with the bill, but we are saying we have so many loopholes so far that many Kenyans are suffering, and also the pricing. As we bring in also, can we look at the pricing, Madam Speaker, because you find you will go and see a doctor, and from a doctor you are given a list of drugs that will cost you beyond 50,000, and this is just a drug of a month. And so every Kenyan in every family, 80% are always on Accra Road, that is where we have the best and the affordable chemist and accessible. So everyone just runs. You find a huge line. If you go right now, Madam Speaker, you'll be shocked how we have a whole, everyone has come from all over. What they are looking for, it is affordable drugs that you can only find at this chemist, which I won't say the name, that is around Accra Road. And it's becoming, it's like a business that is booming. The other thing we need to request, and I'm hoping Chair will look at it, is that as we bring in the authority, we also need to ask ourselves, is there a way we can bring wellness and prevention? That we can prevent taking drugs, but use something else. Is there a way? So that the regulatory, the authority, will not just be talking about drugs, but ensuring that citizens are healthy, and that it is not a must every time I should be taking drugs. I can use, Madam Speaker, vegetables, fruits, as an alternative of my drugs. So even as we look at this, I want us to look at the pricing, who controls, because every day you find each chemist with its own figures. You will be surprised, Madam Speaker, if you go to big malls in Gigiri, it is even cheaper buying there a drug than buying even in our local chemists that are nearby. So, and that tells you how sad it is, and how it is sad to Kenyans. You enter into any hospital, people have now realized that you will be treated, but they have a pharmacy somewhere where they are doing business. So all the profits is now in drugs. But then now, are these drugs better for Kenyans, or we are just worsening the situation of this patient? So for me, especially the antibiotics, these are very critical things that we need to look at. Today, if you take Argumenti for a week, in 2-3 weeks, again, you find yourself with the same attack that you had. And so does it mean this drug nowadays is becoming another menace? So for me, there are two things we have to look at. Even as we look at this, there is need for the Committee of Health to walk around and look at that H. pylori kit, which now they have changed. They have brought in a new one. They are saying now this is better than the other one. But did you sensitize? And how does this one become not better than this other one? And how does a Kenyan who is down in the rural understand that this is the better kit than the other one? So those two drugs that I'm talking about, I have used. I've used H. pylori, the new kit. And in 3 months, I went back to the same challenges that I was facing. So I'm asking myself, and this is a kit, Madam Speaker, you buy at 15,000. So for me, even as we do that, Chair, there is need to be very serious in terms of regulations on how we put in chemists, but more importantly, how we deal with drugs today in our country, and all the pharmaceutical companies that we have must tell us where do they do their public participation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Eric Mushangi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And from the onset, I want to say that I support this bill, the Kenya Drugs Authority Bill, and I wish to commend the Chair and the committee, the Honorable Bukose and his committee, for a job well done. Honorable Speaker, the issue of drugs and medicine is a very serious issue in this country. And I want to say that we have lost very many people through the hands of quack doctors and people who prescribe drugs to ailing citizens, and instead of them giving them drugs, they end up giving them poison. And this is because this sector of drugs is not properly regulated. I believe that by this bill, this sector will be having good regulations, so that, Honorable Speaker, it is not everybody who wakes up one morning and decides to put up a pharmacy. We have seen and heard that in this country, the best business to put up is a pharmacy. And Honorable Speaker, I had a friend who used to brag how he makes so much money out of the sale of medicine. One day you could hear him say of how he bought medicine at a very low price, but selling it at a very high price because of the fact that many citizens cannot undertake the price of the medicine. And I hope this bill now will take care of all this, so that we do not have people consuming drugs out of the people who want to make profit, but not to cure or to even enable our citizens to heal of their diseases. Honorable Speaker, this bill, as proposed, will ensure that this country does not continue receiving or rather importing medicine from China and other countries. It is going to give our country capacity to manufacture drugs and medicine to export, and that will also come with the creation of jobs in this country. So I wish to support and say that the committee has done a good job, and let us also put into consideration the idea of preventive measures. If we can prevent, if there is a way we can prevent the many diseases that we seek to cure through medicine, then that would be a very good thing, so that we do not have to always swallow medicine to get cured. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Member for Seme, Honorable Dr. James Nyikal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the bill. Madam Speaker, this is actually a historical bill. In the last 1 or 2 weeks, we've actually made fairly historical legislations in regard to the health sector, and this is one of them. The objective of this is really the regulation of medicines and medical devices, which includes things like x-rays, which emit radiation, simple things just like blood-giving sets, therapeutic chemical substances, herbal medicines, and all scheduled substance. Madam Speaker, it's also important that this is closely linked also to the products that are used in veterinary medicine and also in agriculture. When you talk of chemicals like pesticides and herbicides, and I know you are interested in that, those actually in a way should link to this, because these are chemicals. It's just how we use them that are different. And even if you use of cosmetics, particularly therapeutic cosmetics, all these things come together. And therefore, Madam Speaker, this raises very important issues considering where we have been in terms of regulations of medicines. The Pharmacy and Poisons Board, as constituted now, is actually regulating medicines and also regulating the personnel, the professionals. And so with this, we are breaking from that, and we are going to have a regulations of medicines separately from the regulations of professionals, which is really a major shift from what we have been doing before. Madam Speaker, also in the past, we have had issues where we have been regulating veterinary medicines and human medicines together, and this has been controversial. There's been a feeling that they should be separated. But if you look carefully, Madam Speaker, the chemicals, the molecules are the same. If you're using a drug, an antibiotic, it's the same molecule you use in animals that you actually use in human beings. So as to whether we should split them, that's another issue that will actually be addressed here. The other important issue that is coming, that we are making a new look at, is the issue of control laboratory. Before, what we have been doing up to now is that the National Quality Control Lab was part and parcel of the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, and yet it had a board of its own. I used to call it a kangaroo board, because you have a board and another board within the board, and it has actually raised a lot of problems. So these are issues that we have to actually look up. These are groundbreaking, making very important changes. And so this bill, I actually support it, Madam Speaker. It actually creates an authority which will look at the issues of licensing, all these things we are talking about, regulations of the same, advertising the same, and even more important, manufacturing, if they can be produced here locally. Because the regulation of manufacturing is a much more complex thing, because you are producing the products de novo, and therefore you have to be a lot more careful. So, Madam Speaker, this bill also, it creates schedules, particularly Schedule 4. And what is important about Schedule 4, Madam Speaker, is that it's actually a good way of bringing all these things together by creating scientific committees that deal with all this. And one of the committees we are going to create is National Food Safety. If you look at the amount of chemicals that are also used in food, I mean, that's something we should also look at. And then you look at a committee on human medicines, you look at a committee on veterinary medicine, and you look at medical devices. Medical devices itself is a huge area. As I said, you start from simple things like blood-giving sets, you go to X-rays, you go to MRI, you get to very complex machines. All these have to be regulated. And then we now have to look at how do we manage the quality control lab itself. That is the lab that actually guides when you're going to do registration and licensing of drugs. So these really are very important issues that this bill is addressing. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is the issue of trade. We have to regulate trade. As far as these are health, medical issues that they deal with human life, that there is also trade element into it with business and business interest, and therefore these have to be regulated. Retailing, as people are saying, you have pharmacies all over the place, charging different things, behaving very differently. That has now have to be looked at. Then you have the issue of wholesale, where the wholesalers themselves, Madam Speaker, actually are a major part of the regulation system, and therefore we should look at that carefully. That is taken care of. Madam Speaker, there is also how we schedule these drugs. So you schedule them on knowing which drugs can be used where, by who. These are really complex issues that we have to look at. And even more importantly is international trade. When you get into international trade, particularly the production of medicine, you must abide by good manufacturing practice. And this good manufacturing practice is actually their WHO guidelines which give the levels. And if you have to manufacture for a bigger area, not just Kenya or East Africa, you have to go to what they call ML level 3, and we require, and that must come out in this. So all this we have, and one thing that has come out that we have to look at as a country is how we relate. We have professionals at various levels. In this country, in pharmacy, we have pharmaceutical technologies, that is a diploma level. You have pharmacies at a degree level. We really must be very clear and set out proper guidelines on who does what, and those must be reflected in the bill itself. And this is not only in pharmacy. You find this clinical officers and medical practitioners. You find this in medical laboratory technologies, and you find and pathologies. You find this in oral health officers and dentists. So again, this bill is probably going to be the first where we are going to have to put those things very clearly and put responsibilities to where it should belong. But on that particular point, my view is, as a country, we should actually start finding a way where people with the diploma can actually work their way up and get to the professional degree level. I think if we do that, then these issues we have of cadre issues, which actually come out a lot more seriously when we come into practice and trade. And unless we do something about it, I think it is going to give us a problem. So this bill addresses all this. There are issues that we will look at the time of the Committee of the Whole House, when we will actually make amendments that will bring those levels we are talking about very carefully. We will bring these committees to exactly delineate what they are supposed to do. With that, Madam Speaker, I support the bill.
Gladys Boss, member for Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. Honorable Speaker, I want to start by commending the chairperson and the members of the Committee on Health, Honorable Dr. Pukose and his members, because this is an extremely timely bill that has actually been long outstanding from the previous, from the 12th Parliament. So we are grateful to Honorable Pukose for ensuring that it did come to life in this particular Parliament, because it's extremely strategic and critical for this country. One, Kenya cannot attain the level 4 status that is required, as I'm informed by professionals like Dr. Pukose and Dr. Nyikal, that if we don't ensure that our law or the Kenya Drugs Authority bill is in conformity with the World Health Organization standards, then Kenya will be locked out from the international market of selling its manufactured pharmaceutical drugs to other countries. Right now, Kenya cannot export to Europe, and Kenya cannot export to the Americas because we do not meet the WHO standards. This bill will ensure that we meet the WHO standards. Yes, in this Parliament, during the finance bill, has given several incentives to encourage pharmaceuticals companies to manufacture locally. They cannot manufacture locally if our law is not, they can manufacture locally, but will not be able to export because of not meeting the international standards. Organizations such as the United Nations, the UNICEF, is domiciled here in Kenya. But whenever they require to buy any drugs, they will not buy the ones manufactured in Kenya because, again, our law is not in conformity with the international standards. So there are only 3 items that we seek and will be discussing going forward that are accommodated in this bill. One is to ensure that, as per the international standards, people, only those who are trained pharmacists can be able to handle certain drugs, so that certain drugs can be handled by pharmacists only, and others can be handled by general handlers, such as our pharmtechs, our pharmacy technicians. This is not to say they'll be locked out of work, because if we improve our manufacturing and are able to export overseas, the biggest persons or personnel who will be guaranteed of jobs and will be involved in the manufacturing are our pharmaceutical technicians. 2, we also want to ensure that, as per the recommended best practices, the practices under the WHO standards, to ensure that licenses are only given, as is done globally, to pharmacists. Because if we don't do that as Kenyans and allow anybody to be given the trading license, then we shall fall below the WHO standards, thereby locking our country and hampering our growth. Again, here I want to make it clear that no pharmacy technicians will lose jobs or be locked out of the market. One is that they will be the ones working in these manufacturing industries, and they will be the ones that will be employed. But it is important that wholesaler dealer's license is a technical practice license and should only be issued to pharmacies, and that can be included in the bill. And lastly, that we reinstate the removal of the veterinary products from this particular bill and be able to include it back, because as I've been informed and studied, is that the molecular science relating to animal health and human health is similar. So it would be a waste of taxpayers' funds to do double regulation and double vetting of human medicine versus veterinary medicine. In other countries, they are domiciled in one authority, which is suggested in this particular bill. So for more efficiency and to ensure that there are no loopholes of certain so that drugs that can have a negative effect can leave the system. And with that, I proceed to support this particular bill, but with those suggested amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, as the Deputy Speaker had indicated, we have challenges with the system. So I am going to rely on the names that I indicated before we lost in the screen. So I'll give the first opportunity to the Honorable Samuel Atandi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to give my contributions on this bill, very important bill. And I begin by congratulating the chairman and the committee that have done a wonderful job in coming up with this bill. Madam Speaker, as everyone has mentioned, this bill is important because it is going to help in regulating the manufacturing sector, the pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. Madam Speaker, pharmaceutical sector is one sector that I believe is capable of helping this country to grow its economy, because the sector has not been really utilized properly. In Kenya, we have about 30 companies that are manufacturing drugs. If you compare this number with our neighbors, Tanzania has about 11, Uganda has about 20. That means, Madam Speaker, that if we really harness this sector, we could be the country that is exporting drugs to the region. Unfortunately, this is not the case, Madam Speaker, because as you are aware, Madam Speaker, we largely rely on imported drugs, imported medicine. And this is the reason why we are saying that if you visit chemists, local chemists, you will find that they are only stocking imported drugs. And some of these imported drugs are drugs of low quality. And I hope that with the licensing that has been, mandate that has been given to this authority, they are going to do a better job in ensuring that the drugs that come to this country are those ones of high quality. But Madam Speaker, coming back to the point that I raised about maximizing on this sector to help us grow our economy, Madam Speaker, I believe that we have done very little as Parliament to help this sector to grow. For example, Madam Speaker, in the recent Finance Act, we did very little because we put so many taxes on this sector. So these taxes that we put on this sector, as a House, I think we have done injustice to this sector, a sector which actually could create job opportunities for our youths, a sector which could actually help us, in generating foreign exchange. Right now we have issues with foreign exchange because we lack inflows, foreign inflows. So Madam Speaker, as we pass this bill, we must remember that high taxation, a high tax regime is bad for any sector. It is bad for the pharmaceutical sector. It is bad for any sector. And I want to call upon government that it is not enough to just come here and bring us bills to pass. We will pass bills, but these bills will have no effect in jump-starting our economy if we do not link some of these legislations with the other aspects of governance, such as taxation. Because, Madam Speaker, right now, you realize that the cost of electricity has gone so high, and there is no manufacturing sector that can prosper if we cannot contain the cost of power. Madam Speaker, if we continue to tax employers, we continue to tax these companies. Today we are taxing, we are increasing NHIF. Tomorrow we are increasing NSSF. We are, I don't know, housing levy, this nonsense tax. Madam Speaker, this nonsense tax is going to kill these sectors. And it will be a waste of time for us to sit here and make laws and bring up good laws which will not be implemented. The other issue, Madam Speaker, is things to do with corruption. Madam Speaker, I also believe that this country does not lack laws. We have enough laws. But how come these laws do not help us? It's because we allow corruption to thrive. Corruption thrives in this sector. The health sector is, I think, is the most corrupt after the police. So if we are going to ensure that these laws work for us and they serve us, these new laws we are passing, then we must be vigilant and ensure that we do not allow corruption to thrive. And because this government has allowed corruption in all its rank, every day this government is displaying corruption. You see a whole deputy president carrying sacks of money going to church, to give donations everywhere. So you are displaying corruption and you want this country to prosper. The country cannot prosper. And therefore, Madam Speaker, what I'm saying is that we must tie some of these things so that they work together for the good of our country. Madam Speaker.
What is out of order, Honorable Roko, member from Bere.
Madam Speaker, it's extremely in bad taste. My brother and my friend, Honorable Tandi, is painting the Deputy President of the Republic, a man whom we respect, a truthful man, as a corrupt person, without any evidence, without laying any papers or any document. And according to the rules of this House, Madam Speaker, you cannot cast aspersion or you cannot discuss the integrity of any senior member of this country who cannot be able to defend themselves here without laying down proper documentation which are signed by an affidavit or from a commission of oath, so that you can prove your allegation. Is he in order, Madam Speaker? Can he withdraw the statements he has made?
Madam Speaker, it's not fair for my colleague to waste my time raising a useless standing order, a useless.
Honorable Atandi, the language you're using now is clearly unparliamentary. And basing on standing order number 91, I listened to you very well. You mentioned the name of the Deputy President. You also, in bad light, and you also talked about carrying money in bags. And I want to invoke standing order number 91, responsibility for statement of fact. And I would like to ask you to substantiate your statement or withdraw and apologize.
Madam Speaker, I am very clear about my statements and the standing orders that apply. Madam Speaker, I'm talking about corruption, and I'm saying, Madam Speaker, that the senior government officers are displaying corruption.
I have a problem with the picking of the mic, so it takes time to pick when after I press. Honorable Atandi,
Madam Speaker,
I have invoked standing order number 91, responsibility for statement of fact. And I have also clearly mentioned the word that you have used, and I have asked you to present evidence because you have mentioned the office, the bearer of certain office. So are you willing to withdraw and apologize so that you may conclude your debate?
Madam Speaker, I don't find anything that I should withdraw, because what I have said is very clear. I have said that government officers are disrupting.
No, you said the deputy president. So yes, but I would like to give you an opportunity to withdraw and apologize, or you can present facts.
I want to add, Madam Speaker, that deputy president is displaying corruption in his activities by carrying millions of money in cash, taking to Arambes. And you know very well, Madam Speaker, that the law that we have, that we pass in this house, you cannot withdraw more than 1 million shillings from your account. Where does he get 5 million shillings to take to Arambes? I will not withdraw, Madam Speaker.
I have a problem with the mic. You notice that I'm really straining. Kindly, whoever is concerned with that, assist. Responsibility for statement of fact. That is standing order number 91. A member shall be responsible for the accuracy of facts which the member alleges to be true and may be required to substantiate any such facts instantly. I would like you to substantiate that fact, alleged fact you're talking about, instantly, or you withdraw and apologize, or I'll consider you out of order.
Madam Speaker, I will bring you evidence of Deputy President presenting millions of shillings in Arambes. I will bring you that evidence. Because there's overwhelming evidence.
Instantly.
Which I don't have here with me.
It is instantly, Honorable Atandi. You are out of order. You cannot have another point of order on top of another point of order, Honorable Ruku. I would like to give you an opportunity to withdraw and apologize. Of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
Madam
it is a serious
Speaker, I will disappoint you. I will not withdraw, because I'm speaking about facts which I believe in. That the Deputy President is displaying corruption by carrying huge sums of money to Arambes.
The other day when I was in this position of the Speaker, I cautioned you, and I think you have a way of finishing your statements in a disorderly way. I cautioned you. Today I'm going to invoke Standing Order 107, disorderly conduct, F, 107(1)F, where member commits an act of disorderly conduct if the member deliberately gives false information to the House, and G, makes allegations without, in the Speaker's opinion, adequate substantiation. And I consider you to have given false information because you do not have the ability to substantiate. I've given you 2 opportunities to do so, and you have made allegations without, in my opinion, adequate substantiation. So I order you to get out of the House. Record that you'll be out of the House for the rest of the day. Honorable Atandi. So may you may now withdraw from the chamber. Withdraw out of the chamber. Order, Honorable Ruku. Order, Honorable Ruku. Honorable Atandi, withdraw out of the chamber. Order, Catherine Omanyo. You are not disorderly, Honorable Catherine Omanyo, so stay in your position. I am addressing the Honorable Atandi, and I have asked you to withdraw from the chamber. Thank you. Honorable members, now we go to the Honorable Rahim Dawood, member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill, Kenya Drugs Authority bill, and I want to congratulate the chairman, Dr. Pokose, together with his committee on the excellent bill.
Honorable Dawood, just a minute. Honorable members, I would like to request you that I take this opportunity to recognize these students from Faith Ventures Christian Academy, Reisambu constituency, Nairobi County, and Kadhikwani Primary School, Kilome constituency in Makwiny County. On my behalf and that of the House, you are welcome to continue observing proceedings in the National Assembly. You may proceed, Honorable Dawood. Honorable members, it is very important for us to recognize these young ones, and we had just lost one of the groups because we did not do it. So you may proceed now, Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like I said, I congratulate the committee led by Dr. Pokose. This bill is very important and it's come at the right time. Madam Speaker, there are many things out there, two groups which are fighting each other so that one is not recognized and one is recognized. Madam Speaker, this bill is not just about the pharmacists and the farm techs. Madam Speaker, this bill goes very far in the establishment of the authority where the national quality control will be the main benchmark where the drugs which are procured in this country are looked at in a sense that we do not get drugs which are expired or which have adverse effects. Madam Speaker, we have been privy to a lot of things, that drugs which are banned in the European Union, they somehow find their way into Kenya because of weak structures. But the way this bill has been structured, Madam Speaker, we will have a proper functioning authority which will take care that these drugs which are not good for our people cannot come to the shores of this country. Madam Speaker, we've got an issue with a lot of cosmetics which are sold in the streets of Nairobi and other places, which are very harmful to our people, but they are being sold and they are being imported because the standards have been lowered. But with this bill, I believe we will have those cosmetics being banned completely because, Madam Speaker, like the previous speakers have said, there are some drugs which you can buy just specially. They are not put on the shelves. They're put on the side, on the back in the stores, and they're not sold to each and every person. If I were to go, I would not be sold those drugs, but they know who to sell them to. So, Madam Speaker, we need to control those things, Madam Speaker, as well as this bill goes far in the manufacture of pharmaceuticals in this country. It makes it easier for local manufacturing. And Madam Speaker, I would want to confess that my two daughters are pharmaceutical. One is a pharmaceutical scientist, a master's, and one is a pharmacist, doctor in pharmacy. And that does not mean that I do not advocate for pharmacy, the farm techs. Farm techs, they have got their own place. Pharmacies have got their own place. I believe when we come to the committee stage, I have spoken to the chair regarding, Madam Speaker, you will protect me from Mheshimiwa, he's just gone. Madam Speaker, when we come to the committee stage, I believe we will give justice to this bill because there is an issue. Farm tax are out there, and we need pharmacies in all the small towns and in the villages, because without having pharmacies, then the universal health care of the government of Kenya Kwanza will not be achieved, Madam Speaker, and they are supposed to be there. But let them handle what is supposed to be handled, and pharmacists will be handling the wholesale and retail. So, Madam Speaker, when we are saying it is nothing to do with just pharmacists and farm techs, but it's to do with what we are going to be getting in future. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support. And Madam Speaker, I would, I don't know, it's not an advice or that, but I would want in future any member who imputes improper motive, they should not be allowed to go very far. The mic should be shut off before even they can go too far, because there is no justification in character assassination. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Otiende Amolo, member for Rieda, Senior Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from the onset, I'd like to congratulate the committee for the bill, and I want to say I'm in support of the bill, because among others, it rationalizes this area. It brings issues that fall under the Pharmacy and Poisons Act and under the Food, Drugs and the Chemical Substances Act to rationality. And I agree that it's actually in keeping with the international standards. And therefore, Madam Speaker, for the whole bill as it is, I only have one small area that I do not agree with, that I think the committee should look at, and that is what is in section 8(2)J. In that section, which talks about the composition of the board, the chair of the board is clearly indicated as a person appointed by the president who is a registered pharmacist of good standing with a degree in pharmacy. When it comes to the representative of the governors, they say it would be a person with special knowledge of drugs and health technologies, whatever that means. It is to be noted, Madam Speaker, that there is definition. In the definition section, a pharmaceutical technologies is defined, and also a pharmacist is defined. But there is no definition of this animal called a person with special knowledge of drugs and health technologies. Whenever you are not clear, it always gives rooms for appointment of all sorts of persons, and they say we have knowledge. That is one area that I would like to urge the chair and the committee to consider. And Dr. Pukose is not listening, but someone will tell him what I've just said. Madam Speaker, aside from that, I do not have a problem with the bill as it is, and as I've said, I support it. But I do have a problem with some sections of the report of the committee, and I've gone through it. And the conceptual, two aspects. The first aspect is what the Deputy Speaker spoke to, and that is what is in clause 2D of the committee report. There was a proposal in the report, and I hope they will drop it, to remove the veterinary medicine from the ambit of the bill. As submitted, I think, by Dr. Nyikal, it is my view that whether it is human medicine or veterinary medicine, it is medicine. And the molecular composition may vary, but not substantially. And therefore, it's my view, Madam Speaker, that regulation of veterinary medicine, just like human medicine, must still be centralized, and it must be brought back to this authority. And I'd really like to urge the committee to consider and drop that particular amendment. The second general area is an area that I think Dr. Daud just spoke to. Dr. Nyikal also mentioned it. There are very many areas in which the committee is suggesting adding the word pharmaceutical technologist, where the word pharmacist appears. And this includes, for example, when it comes to clause 2M in the report, It also includes clause 39 to 41 when it comes to regulation of wholesale dealers. It also includes, especially in clause 41, where you are talking of those adding pharmaceutical technologies to those to deal with scheduled substances. And it's a variety of places which I do not have to enumerate all of them, some of which I've pointed out to Dr. Pukose. Madam Speaker, I have a conceptual problem with that approach, that where you have the word pharmacist, you just simply want to add the word pharmaceutical technologist. While I agree with what Honorable Dawood said, and even Dr. Nyikal, that we need to find a niche for each, I do not agree that you can lump these two people together. I do not agree, Madam Speaker, that in all these professions, and it's not just in the pharmacy, I think pathologists have that problem. The pathologists and the lab technicians. The doctors have this issue between the doctors and the clinicians. The architects have an issue between the architects and the draftsmen. The engineers have an issue between engineers and inspectors. Even the advocates have this issue between paralegals, between advocates and paralegals or clerks. It cannot be that one can go for learning at a certain level of a certain rank for so many years, and that it can just be amended by the stroke of the pen that it is stroke so and so. If one graduates, it is okay, and one can always rise higher. But until you get there, there must be roles that are preserved for you and roles that are preserved for someone else of higher learning who also takes higher responsibility for their action. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I want to persuade the committee to reconsider that approach of simply saying pharmacist stroke pharmaceutical technologist and adopt a more practical approach of looking at what is it that pharmaceutical technologists can do, and what is it that we will reserve for pharmacists. You know, it can be argued, and it's been argued, that look, as a country we have shortage of specialists, including pharmacists. We have issues of costs. We have issues of people who are experienced, even if they are technologists, sometimes even more than the pharmacists. But there are reasons for this categorization, and the solution cannot be to lower the standards or to lower the threshold. The solution must be to address those specifics and agree on what we want to hold at a higher pedestal and what we want to hold at a lower pedestal. And then for each pedestal, to hold those respective categories to the highest professional standard and punish them whenever there's transgression. I do not agree, therefore, Madam Speaker, that we can simply say that anything that a pharmacist can do, a pharmaceutical technologist can do. And there are many in this bill. Lastly, Madam Speaker, there is actually a technical point that the committee should actually consider. I'll urge Dr. Pukose to look at the history of this bill, and if he looks at the history of this bill, you will see that on 24th October 2018, there was a discussion of similar provisions. At that time, a similar thing had been done, and the Attorney General gave an advisory that it was improper to equate those two levels. When the bill went to the President refused to assent and brought it back with those observations. And I'm sure Dr. Pukose's clerks will be able to get all that. Do we want to walk that path again, where there was an advisory that was issued, it was ignored, it resulted in refusal to assent? And technically, what would that mean? When it has come back, and it's essentially a continuation of the bill, would it then attract a higher threshold as usual of the 2/3 or not? So that we do not walk that line, and so that we do not detain a bill that is otherwise quite good, I would urge the committee to look at those distinctions without making anyone think that they've won or they've lost, but we give due learning, due experience and responsibility where it belongs. With that, Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Silvanus Osoro, member for South Mugirango and Whip, Majority Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to echo the words of those who've spoken ahead of me and support this particular bill from the onset. And just like my colleague and learned senior Honorable Tienda has spoken, I agree entirely with everything that is here, except for a few. Number one, Honorable Speaker, it's important for us to start defining our bills differently, or the bodies that we choose to manage particular sections of, to manage issues of our country differently. This bill is the Kenya Drugs Authority bill. If there is a way, sometimes we need to think through beyond appearing like we want to authoritize everything. That if it can be a service, you know, like the Kenya Drugs Service, something, so that it appears like it's not just an authority, but it's a service that also offers other things, not just regulations that, you know, that be. But be that as it may, Honorable Speaker, drugs is a general term. Human beings use drugs, but also animals use drugs. You know, we've got animals, and the science is the same. The scientists go through the same training. It's only that one is meant for a human being, and another one is meant for an animal. So the separation or the exclusion of the veterinary drugs from this particular bill is not right. My view, even as we go to the next step, that the committee should consider, just like Honorable Tienda said, including the veterinary drugs. These things of and saying that, you know, it's regulated differently. As the bill is currently, I hear Honorable Millie say that it's there. It's not there in this particular bill, that it's regulated differently. It should be included when you go to the next reading. Honorable Speaker, you see, there is a tendency of the wannabes in a particular career, and I say this with tremendous respect. The wannabe in a career pushing to be placed at par with the people, with the people that they are ambitiously focusing to achieve, you know, their goal. Like, you get a clerk in my law firm wants to be called wakili or an advocate, and he's a clerk. And that is the justification this bill is also providing. That a pharmaceutical technologist wants to be at par with a pharmacist. You know, that you define them with the same line, within the same line, that a pharmacist and a technologist. I mean, they are also distinct. Even their mode of training is different. One is just basic, and the other one goes extreme in the training. So this justification of trying to put the people, you know, the wannabes of a particular career at par with the people who've gone steps higher in terms of training should be reviewed. And I think even as the committee looks at that, they should focus, they should find a way to push and make sure that such roles are distinct, clearly distinct. But even as we look at this, Honorable Speaker, it's important for this particular bill also, and even the people who manage these matters drugs, to be keen on also what is happening. We nowadays, or we currently have so many quacks in different professionals. So many quacks. You know, what is now in public domain is a quacks in the Law Society of Kenya, or lawyers, I would say there. People pretend to be advocates and they've never gone to any law school. But it's worse when those quacks also practice the over-the-counter sale of the medicines. You can imagine what will happen if somebody prescribes a wrong medicine on a wrong, you know, prescribes a wrong medicine on you, on your body, and there is no reverse, there is no spare on your body. that even as we look at this, we need to find a way to have most of these quirks in professions. You know, people have sacrificed, gone to school, studied very hard, opened, you know, decided to have their businesses in pharmacy, and somebody comes next, collects allowances for another person who's gone to school, and then decides to wear a dust coat, you know, and calls himself doc or a pharmacist, and sells drugs and prescribes drugs. And those are the people you hear when you go to their pharmacies. They just tell you, you know, you say, I have a stomachache, and they tell you, you look like you have H. pylori. And they give you some kits without proper medical checkups. So even as we look at this whole thing, it's important for us to be keen on that. And those quacks are in the villages. I have seen so many in my constituency. You know, small chemists selling Panadol, selling everything, and others even doing abortions. Quite unfortunate. And sometimes such are discovered when things have gone south. So we also need to find a way to regulate and protect societies, professional bodies, professional societies. You know, like now the pharmacies and such. So that quality professions are protected, human life is also protected, and the dignity of a profession is guarded. I mean, it kills morale for one to go to school for nothing, because it's something that can be done by other people. And that is what now is happening in the hospitals. And Honorable Speaker, even in such, even as we talk about the drugs, others go to an extent of selling drugs that are expired, drugs that have been banned from some countries. And nowadays they know the science of human beings. They know that what people want. People want quick service over the counter. And it becomes very easy to get a quack selling you, or even that pharmacy, a professional or qualified pharmacist selling you over the counter without prescription. If there is a way such can be stopped, you know, generic medicines, they tell you, you know, you've come for Panadol, this one is original, and that's how they say this is generic. So why are you selling generic? Why can't you sell me original? What is, how do we relate? If it does the same job, then why can't we have the original, even if the pricing is different? What is this? Is it business, trading business for human body? Those are the things that we also need to discuss, even as we go through this whole process. But generally, Honorable Speaker, the bill is good only for such reviews that we meet the WHO standards. We include, you know, the veterinary medicine to be part of this whole thing. We separate the pharmacists, the real pharmacists, from the technicians, because I believe, you know, they say when I was growing up, you know, I used to see people in dust coat and I thought all of them were doctors. I didn't know that some of them were butchery attendants, and others were selling sausages, and others were true doctors and, you know, and pharmacists. So once we are able to do that, the technologists aside, the pharmacists aside, then the bill as it is right. And that is why I want to congratulate Honorable Chair and your committee. This is a good job. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would love to support this because life, we must not at any time think of joking with our lives. Medicine is very key. As my member of parliament was speaking, Honorable Soro, because I'm the woman rep for Kisii, so he's my MP from South Mugirango. I just remembered while you walk along Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisii County, several chemists and patients will tell you that we have many chemists which offer all the medicines that you cannot find in our facility. Then you keep on wondering, Madam Speaker, we have the best doctors in hospitals, they treat, but they don't have the best medicine. That is just a fallacy. it does not add up. It's like you go to class, you find that the teacher is teaching without the books. This bill will help doctors, and if they are told you are treating a patient, yes, you are telling this patient, oh, sorry, we don't have this medicine in this facility, but you can find it as you walk out. And when you are walking, Madam Speaker, those are the facilities which offer that medicine. I ask myself each day, how come you only find the paracetamol? That is very cheap. It is available. But these other medicines which give you the cure now, you are told that you cannot find them here. And the normal percentage of high number of quacks operating these kind of businesses, sometimes we have people, they lose their lives. And others will tell you, if you want good treatment, you go to India. Why should we leave our dear country, Madam Speaker, if the regulations have not been made right, that we only have to get better treatment in other countries? I support this, Madam Speaker. My brother Kibagendi is really complaining. I don't know, Madam, if you can give her the 2 minutes. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member for Kisii, you are out of order. The Honorable Karidho, Member for Igembe Central.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Pokose and his committee for coming up with this bill, the Kenyan Drug Authority Bill. Madam Speaker, we are in this era whereby almost everybody is suffering from this illness and the other. In most of the families, you find that at least almost 80% of the families in Kenya, somebody is taking this drug, maybe joint pain, here and there. Madam Speaker, we need to have standards for our products. Because as much as we think of ourselves, we should think of the world at large. And we are not in a world of our own. Madam Speaker, we need to have pharmaceutical companies, especially those who are in production, considering the standards of the products that they make. And I have seen the bill, I have read it, and it's really covering large areas to make sure that all the products that are made by our pharmacists are the right products and the best ones. Madam Speaker, in Kenya we have a challenge, especially on counter treatment. We have made the drugs, and many of us have become drug abusers. I have seen and have witnessed people taking some cough syrups like Actifend. They have been banned in some countries, but here people have been abusing them, overdosing, and they end up being drunkards through those drugs. Madam Speaker, it's the high time that all the drugs that are sold at the pharmacies, they are sold, the drugs that have been prescribed by the medics who have the quality and who are qualified to do that job. Madam Speaker, we would discourage a situation whereby you wake up, go to the pharmacy, and just demand for a drug, and the dealer sells to you the drug that they wish because they are out to make money. We have seen that in most cases, we've seen surrounding pharmacists and pharmacy shops without even licenses. And I have seen the bill is taking care of all that, and we believe that after the bill is through and becomes a law, it will really be working and not to just be seen as a law. Madam Speaker, the other issue is that of the generic drugs. My brother has talked much about them, but it's also a challenge because they are not labeled as generic. But you are told these are generic drugs, they are not originals, these are cheaper. I think the subscription from the doctor should be saying what should be given. There's this also the issue of the interchangeability, whereby you can go with a prescription for the drugs that you are supposed to take. Then you find a pharmacist does not have those drugs in his shop. He intends to give you an alternative for the drugs that have been prescribed by your doctor. I believe because it's also taking care of that, it will be affected. So in generally, the bill is a very good bill, and I will support it, and I believe it will serve Kenyans and even international community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Karito. The Honorable George N. Gashagwa, member for Daragwa. Is Honorable Gashagwa in the House? Then we will be followed by the Honorable John Waluke, member for Sirisia.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. From onset, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill, the Kenya Trucks Authority Bill, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the chair, Dr. Bukose, and his committee for bringing in this important bill, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is today that I have heard from Dr. Nyakal that medicine for treating human beings and animals are the same. I never knew that, Madam Speaker. And I'm so shocked because I had never had anything like that. Madam Speaker, the pharmacists of this country, Madam Speaker, some of them are not trained. I have witnessed it even in where I come from, Madam Speaker. Somebody is running a pharmacy for the last 25 years, and he is not a nurse or neither a doctor, but he sells medicine, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I want to request this committee under Dr. Bukose, because Dr. Bukose himself is a doctor, is a medical doctor, to take action, Madam Speaker, with these quack doctors and nurses, Madam Speaker, who sell medicine and they are not qualified for doing such a business, Madam Speaker. Because, Madam Speaker, we have lost lives of very many people who are innocent and they are sick, going to look for medicine, Madam Speaker, and these people end up giving them wrong medicine, Madam Speaker. So it is good that the committee has observed and come out with a bill that we are going to support to make sure that we protect lives of our people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want the manufacturers of this country also to wake up. Madam Speaker, you saw during COVID time, I thought that the manufacturers of this country and doctors were going to come out also, like South Africa, Madam Speaker, to manufacture medicine. Like South Africa manufactured medicine for COVID, Madam Speaker. And our doctors here and also the manufacturers, medical manufacturers or medicine manufacturers, Madam Speaker, we've never seen them coming out with that different idea that can save this country from importing medicine or from outside the country, Madam Speaker. So we want also to compete like any other country in the world, Madam Speaker, to make sure that Kenya is on board on every aspect like this one of medicine, Madam Speaker. I want to support this bill. It's a very important bill, Madam Speaker, and colleagues should pass this bill, Madam Speaker, because it is important to us as a nation and to the people of Kenya. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Boaluke, the Honorable Kibangendi, member for Kitutu Chache South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the member of this committee. Indeed, a regularized industry will guard especially the masses from being exploited by unscrupulous dealers. We have realized in the past that we have had every hoi polloi has been involved in the sale, manufacture, and distribution of drugs, both for humans and even for veterinary purposes. And if we pass this particular bill, we'll have a properly regularized sector that will ensure only those that are allowed to run chemists and even those manufacturing are the only ones that will be involved in this particular trade. The other thing is that we also need to ensure that as we push Kenyans to go for further studies, there needs to be a clear demarcation on where one class of training can get to and where the other can take up from. And for that reason, I support this bill and I ask members to pass. Thank you.
The Honorable Ruku, member for Mbere North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From onset, I want to support this bill, and I want to congratulate Dr. Pokose and his committee in a special way. Madam Speaker, I was in a process of doing a number of RAP tests on the drugs within our market. Myself and my team, I work with a very formidable team, Madam Speaker, because already in Kenyan market there is huge section of drugs which are completely not good for human consumption. And these drugs are found their way into the pharmacies, which we have in different parts of this country. And this is happening, Madam Speaker, when we have poison and drug board, which is supposed to check on the quality of the drugs we have in our shelves. But in one way or the other, many cheap drugs, and of course we need to have cheap drugs in the country, but which are of good quality, which are can able to treat different ailment which occurs within the Republic of Kenya, so that we can have a healthy society. The control of how the drugs are dispensed from our chemists is an extremely important function, and this bill is coming to regulate how this is going to happen. And therefore, Madam Speaker, the effort which can be put in place by the committee is very commendable. But as this is happening, before this bill is enacted, before it comes into law, is it possible, Madam Speaker, to move with speed and check whether the drugs which we have in our shelves, because some of them have already been ruled that they are not fit for human consumption. They are not good to treat some of the, especially children pediatric drugs. Some, they seem to be addictive. Is it, before we enact this, before we ensure this is done, I think the authorities concerned within this space, they should also be able to move with speed and check what is being sold in our pharmacies, whether it meets the required standards. And I was in the process of working on a report which we can table in this house as far as this is concerned. And because this has come on the floor of the house, I didn't know whether there's an effort by the chairman Pukose to work on this. Please, let's see what is being sold in our pharmacies is of good quality, so that we may not be adding more problems when we are claiming that we are treating people from different diseases or different ailments. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I support and congratulate Dr. Pukose with his team. Thank you.
The Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I also stand to support this bill, but with possible amendments. And Honorable Speaker, the areas that I actually want to focus on, and it's been mentioned here before, is that as a country, we have our own aim, and we strive to achieve the WHO maturity level 3 in terms of health. And when we allow clause 39 of this particular bill, subsection 4, to proceed, then in intent, we are trying to say that we don't really take into account what we are striving to achieve. Honorable Speaker, allowing the wholesale and distribution of drugs to anyone, especially the technical people who do not have the required qualification, is not only going to harm our pharmaceutical environment, but it's also going to affect the safety of the public. Honorable Speaker, for example, you can imagine if we have a drug like the morphine being easily accessible to people who do not really know how to prescribe it, how this is going to affect the overall population of our country. Honorable Speaker, we've had so many outcries from the pharmaceutical professionals, from doctors, in terms of how this is ideally going to affect us. And I think it's upon us as a House of Legislation to also take into consideration how this is going to affect the people out there. Honorable Speaker, it has come to our attention also that we've become a society where there's a lot of allowances to shortcomings and shortcuts.
Honorable Miriam, do you have an intervention? Because you've been lifting your hand. What is out of order, Honorable Miriam?
No, Madam Speaker, because this motion is, this bill looks very popular. I think after she finishes, I think we can ask the mover to reply. Understanding order number 95.
Is it the mood of the House that I call upon the mover to reply? Okay, I'll then put that to test. Honorable members, I would like to ask whether it is the mood of the House that I call upon the mover to reply. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. Nay. The nays have it, so we proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think this is a very important motion to this country, and we should ventilate and debate as much as possible. Honorable Speaker, as I was saying, we've had instances, and this has been mentioned before, of where quacks are actually operating and practicing in professions that ideally one should go to school properly and have the proper qualification before you can practice. Just the other day, we have had a quack in the surgeon and medical environment. And Honorable Speaker, when we begin to allow some of these amendments to come through, we set a very dangerous precedence for this country. Because then we will also have situations where other people who just have diplomas will start coming in and saying that they want to go to court and start representing clients. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, I do not want us to encourage this, and I want to also just encourage the Chair and the Committee of Health to be very, to take on positively the amendments that we seek to bring to the House in terms of what we feel should be regulated in this particular bill. Honorable Speaker, I also want to speak about clause 41, subsection 1B, which suggests removing the schedule of medicines, and also that we should be able to revert back to global acceptable scheduling as indicated in the standards in CAP 244. And the reason why I say this, Honorable Speaker, again, is because if you go to some of these countries, out there like South Africa, Dubai, the UK, and you go to over the counter to request for medication, you will actually not be given medication, and they're very strict about that unless you have proper prescription. And as a country, we should strive to go towards that direction, because by doing so, then we are able to not only safeguard the public, but we are also to ensure that the highest measurements of standards of medicine and prescription of the same is attained in our country. Honorable Speaker, and because there's so much interest, I will stop there so that I allow others to debate. But I just want to, as I said, to urge the committee to be very positive in their reception towards the amendments that we will seek to be bringing to the floor of the House. I submit.
Thank you. The Honorable Zamzam Chimba, member for Mombasa County.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa vile muda unasi nitaenda mbio nikisema kwanza napongeza kamati ya afya kuweza kuleta mswada huu bungeni. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, madawa yamekuwa yakitumiwa kwa njia mbaya. Tumeona kuwa kuna watu wengi wamefungua chemist kila mahali wanauza. Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa mswada huu utaweza kupita na kurekebishwa sehemu ambazo zinaweza zikaleta sintofahamu kwa watu ambao wako katika hii industry, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa ni mswada mzuri sana. Ifahamike kuwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna hata madawa ambayo watoto wengi wamekuwa wakiingia wanatumia, bora akiangalia ile prescription inasoma kitu gani, unapata anaenda ananunua, na yule mtu wa pharmacy kwa vile hamuulizi prescription kutoka kwa daktari, yeye anaangalia tu anampatia, yeye bora afanye biashara. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa kutakuwa na sheria kama hii inayoletwa ya kuzingatia kuwa lazima hii industry iangaliwe vizuri, lazima wale wanaouza wao ni watu ambao wamebobea katika sekta hii, ili tusiweze kuleta madhara kwa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, watoto hata wa skuli wameweza kutumia madawa haya wakiyapata kiolela, kuavya mimba. Wengine wametumia ikiwa mtu pengine ana stress, anajua dawa fulani nikienda tu katika chemist fulani nitapata, nitakunywa, nitalala, lakini haisaidii. Mheshimiwa Spika, imekuwa ikiharibia maisha yao. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka nichukue fursa hii, kwa vile kuna wenzangu pia wataka kuzungumza, niseme napongeza mswada huu, lakini kama alivyosema dadangu Irene Mayaka, tusiwezi kuweka mwanya ambao utakuja watu wapelekana kotini wakirudi. Tuweke sheria ambayo itakuwa inakubalika, sheria ambayo itazingatia sheria ambayo tunayo katika taifa hili, na muhimu katika yote pia Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tuna sehemu ambapo kwamba utapata watu dawa zikishakuwa zime-expire zenda kutupwa. Kule zinakotupwa waziwazi pia utapata kuna watu wanaenda wanaokota wanatumia. Ama katika hospitali zetu, nafikiri jana tumekuwa na hawa ndugu zetu wa KEMSA ambao tulikuwa tuwauliza maswali, ikabainika kuwa hata kuna dawa ambazo zilienda Mombasa County ambazo zilikuwa pengine expiry bado miezi miwili mitatu. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii weza kuona yule mtu wa pharmacy ndani ya hospitali aweza katoa kumbe muda ambao wa kutumika umeisha, akaweza kupatia mgonjwa ikaleta madhara, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo tuangalie sheria ambayo itathibiti kuwa madawa yoyote yasiingie Kenya kama muda wao wa kuisha uko karibu, yasiweze kupitishwa katika mipaka yetu, Mheshimiwa Spika. Tumekuwa kina mama wa kuenda tunabisha chemist, mtoto anakohoa, unachukua dawa yoyote. Tumepata kuna madawa mengi yametengezwa katika mataifa ya nje. Kwa mfano kulikuwa na tetesi, kuna dawa zilitoka Pakistan, zingine India, tukaona picha wanazitengeza nyumbani. Hizi madawa zimepata njia ya kuweza kuingia katika taifa letu na zimeweza kuleta madhara. Kwa hiyo naweza kuunga mjadala huu, kusupport hii kamati na kuwapongeza na kusema lazima tuweke sheria ambayo inaweza kudhibiti hii industry ya madawa. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker.
The Honorable Jane Kagiri, member for Laikipia County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. First is to thank the Committee of Health for coming up with this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I first thank the committee for protecting the people we represent, people who cannot differentiate who is a doctor and who is not a doctor. For that purpose, Honorable Speaker, I appreciate that this bill is going to allow us to differentiate between a pharmacist, a pharmaceutical technologist, or even somebody who is not actually a doctor. Because in this country, Madam Speaker, health is a very expensive venture. And many a times we find our people going for treatment and maybe getting the wrong treatment for that matter. So in this case, this bill will be helping our people enjoy quality, safe and efficient treatment. And again, Honorable Speaker, on the creation of the Kenya Drugs Authority, I appreciate that now we'll have an organization that will be investigating and monitoring the drugs that are used in this country. Madam Speaker, many a times we've heard of banned drugs which are still in our country being used. We will now have an authority that we can report to and actually raise issues if a situation like that happens. Madam Speaker, I also support the very high fines and very prohibitive or punitive for anybody who will be going against the laws that will be in this bill, because, Honorable Speaker, many a times we've had our people treated for the wrong treatments or given the wrong medicine. And sadly enough, the families are left to take care of these people. Honorable Speaker, the culprits walk away unpunished and leave families suffering. Honorable Speaker, I support this bill because it's a bill that is going to improve our health care and the safety of our people and the security of our people. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I support the bill.
Thank you. The Honorable Millie Odhiambo, member for Suba North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to support this bill and thank the chairman of the Committee of Health for this well thought out bill. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that this bill provides for regulation so that we do not have drug abuse and also exploitation of the poverty of others, because there are people who may be addicted to drugs, and when we leave a framework where they can easily access drugs, then it means we'll be exploiting their poverty and their situations. Madam Speaker, I just want to also say that I also support this bill because it recognizes alternative medicine, though it needs to define what alternative medicine is. Actually, when I was looking at this bill, I went and tried and to make a definition or to define alternative medicine, only to discover that it's already defined under the Health Act. So there may be some cleaning up that this may need to be done. A few other things that we need to make reference to the relevant acts. Another issue is I'm happy that it recognizes herbal medicine. However, from the approach that this bill is giving herbal medicine, it is very scared. It's like we want to recognize it, but we still seem to think that herbal medicine is witchcraft from the way we are dealing with this. Herbal medicine is not witchcraft. In fact, 25% of all world medicines are derived from herbs. And now that we can actually recognize that there is the importance of herbal medicine, especially here in Kenya, then what we need to do is then to make sure that we give it the proper place. And I have proposed amendments that would ensure that we mainstream herbal medicine. I've said it before the House that we even have, in our own country, Kenya, we have several plants that are actually, like Mwarubaine and others, that are actually helping us, and they're herbal medicine. And for women, gynecological issues, most of our gynecological issues are actually dealt with by herbal medicine, much less by the modern medicine, or what we perceive as modern medicine. Madam Speaker, it also recognizes generic drugs, though I'm still trying to figure out how we deal with it in relation to intellectual property rights. But I think that one of the things that is of concern to me is that it gives the doctors who are prescribing the medicine the opportunity to then allow the dispensing chemist a chance to dispense the generic drugs, but does not give the patient a chance to refuse the generic drugs. Because sometimes you go to a healthcare facility and what the doctor prescribes for you is not what you're given, and then, even for you when the doctor is prescribing that alternative, the doctor needs to get your concurrence, because I may not want generic drugs. So those are things that are not there. Madam Speaker, I have several proposed amendments, and I will be bringing them at the right time. And Madam Speaker, I've actually talked to Honorable Osoro off the cuff, and I'd want to bring it here, and I want to encourage the leadership of the majority that do not be worried or scared about amendments. We are all Kenyans, and if I propose an amendment, I'm only doing it to further the good or the benefits for Kenyans. So do not be scared. Like yesterday, I actually had some proposed amendments to the primary health care bill, but we are moving at such supersonic speed that we cannot bring proposed amendments, even though it was such a good bill in itself. But we wanted to look at adherence for people with HIV and AIDS. We wanted to look at ensuring that the issue of sexual and gender-based violence is treated as a health issue, because it provides a framework that reaches the household. And those are issues that are very significant. But the way we are moving, and it's unfortunate that we want to try and even shorten debate on this important bill, which is of significance to other members. And I'd want to encourage the leadership of this House that if you are not careful, very soon we'll be having what we call legislative dictatorship. We are used to executive dictatorship, but we are increasingly seeing what is appearing as legislative dictatorship. We know that you have the numbers, but have your way as we have our say. But where you use standing orders to keep stifling our voices, it's not a good thing, especially when you have a very good bill. Let members speak to it. The world is not ending tomorrow or the day after. Let us talk to them. Let us add value. I don't see why we are rushing like we are worried. Chair, there's also the issue of the quacks. And I want to thank Honorable Mayaka for raising that issue, that through this bill, we will bring an amendment to ensure that we don't have everybody dispensing drugs aimlessly. Madam Speaker, we know that there are many, many young girls who are dying because of abortions, especially unsafe abortions, and girls who are given drugs by people who are not qualified. And when we actually make it so easy for people to dispense who are not qualified, then we are actually creating a problem. Even, Chair, another thing that I saw that was of concern to me is the issue of giving, one of the qualifications for the CEO is that the CEO should be an engineer. I don't understand why the CEO should be an engineer when we are dealing with the drugs. What engineering do they need? Because even though we are dealing also with the devices, you actually do notice that most of it is about drugs. One of my proposed amendments was either you separate it so that it is not about devices, it's only drugs. But if it is drugs and devices, then we actually need to bring an amendment even to the name of this bill so that it's Kenya Drugs and Devices Bill. Otherwise, this is a very good bill, and I want to yet again congratulate the chairman and the committee for this bill. I do support, and once again urge the leadership to avoid legislative dictatorship. We are members, We also represent constituents, and I cannot bring an amendment that harms my own constituent. Thank you, I support.
Honorable Rashid Benziba, member for Kisauni.
Madam Speaker, ni kushukuru kwa kunipa nafasi pia mimi kupenyeza sauti yangu, ingawa nilikuja mapema nikitaka kuzungumzia mambo ya ajali barabarani, lakini sikupata nafasi. Lakini pia niseme kwamba niwapongeze kamati kwa kuja tena kanuni za kuweza kulinda afya za wananchi, kwa sababu taifa lenye nguvu ni lile taifa ambalo wananchi wake wana afya, na ni vyema sana pia wale wanaouza madawa wawe ni watu ambao wana ujuzi huo, sio tu wanapeana, kwa sababu mara nyingi daktari anapoandika madawa wanarudi wanasema hizi hakuna, lakini hizi zinafanana. Kwa hivyo zingine zinakwenda zinadhuru wananchi, na pia wananchi wanatosha waelezewe kwa makini kwamba dawa hii unatumia madhara yake ni haya. Dawa nyingi zina side effect. Mtu anaanza kutibiwa ugonjwa huu, mara anaambiwa figo tayari imeharibika. Kwa hivyo ni vyema sana watu wawe na taarifa kamili ya kuelezwa kwamba hizi dawa zina madhara kiasi gani. Kwa hivyo asante.
You have a balance. The Honorable Benziba, member for Kisauni, you have 8 minutes balance. Next time when this bill is scheduled for debate, and the bill has a balance of 1 hour and 24 minutes. Honorable members, and the time now being 1:00 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 18th of October 2023 at 2:30 p.m.